Before we decide what we're going to do and where we're going to, it's who. We use a term around on the bus all the time. We want to get to a certain destination. We have got a vision to get there. But if we haven't got the right people on the bus, then we're not going to get there. But what trumps that for me is attitude and behaviour. So positivity, grit, determination. We like people that have overcome challenges. The flywheel concept is basically, imagine a big wheel. We created a vision and a plan and we've adapted that. And ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to push this big wheel to turn it. If we all have the same end game, the same objectives, that wheel starts to spin quicker.
Hi everyone, you're listening to the Unrelenting Drive podcast, and before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know I started this podcast because over the years I've had hundreds of the most inspiring conversations of my life with small business owners, and they really helped me grow and scale my own business and get my mindset right even when times were really tough. I wanted to capture those conversations and make them available to other small business owners who are following in my footsteps, and I've just got a small request. If you enjoy this episode, if you find it really inspiring, if you find it helps you in your own business, then please just like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The more subscribers we get, the more we can invest in making the podcast better. So enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, it's Nishi here. You're watching the Unrelenting Drive podcast. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Tim from Dunore Connections. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. Could you tell the audience what you do?
Yeah, so I'm managing director and co-founder of Dunore. We're an award-winning utilities project management business. We're investors in people. We're investors in people and partners. We're trying to make what is a pretty fragmented industry better for our customers ultimately, and helping them navigate through the various processes and the various companies that they may have to deal with getting connected ultimately.
That's absolutely amazing. And in a few minutes, we'll actually delve into all of that and what you do today and how you add the value. But if you could just help me understand, how did you get into the world of work and what did you do to get to where you are now?
Okay. It's been a journey. I'm 40 years of age. Did pretty well at school, went to college, didn't do so well, a little bit irresponsible, a little bit immature. Liked a good time too much rather than focusing on sort of education. And
University of Jack Daniels.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that. I went travelling for a sort of couple of years, pretty much on my own, really. Came back, needed a job. I was sort of 19, 20 years of age. As much as I love my family, didn't really want to live at home. Needed a job to do that. Pretty much went into a temping agency in Solihull where I lived at the time. Got a temporary contract with E.ON, which is ultimately the industry that we are in now. And yeah, I did pretty well there really. Started to knuckle down, really put the work in, left E.ON in a relatively senior position.
What was your position when you left?
Regional sales manager for their new connections business.
Oh, amazing.
Which is obviously a clear link to what we do now, really. So from there, moved into a business development position at Fulcrum, headed up that business development team with a colleague of mine. And then I spent a few years progressing through the industry, various promotions externally from the companies that I was in, and ultimately finished up sort of 2.5-3 years ago doing something very similar to what I do now. I'd had kind of like a full rounded view of the industry, and was working for a friend, but really got to the point where I felt my sort of business acumen, my skills, my technical knowledge was in a position to do something on my own, and it's really strange the way it came about, to be honest. My the co-owner of my business partner, John Newsham, we met probably 3.5 years ago now.
Were you working in the same place?
No, so we were actually competing for a project John originally was a procurement specialist. I was an infrastructure specialist. So it's kind of two sides of the coin, if you like. And we we were vying for the same job for different reasons and for different objectives. And to be fair to John, he realised that I was actually based in Northamptonshire. He'd made contacts. We'd had a coffee, talked about it, and we kind of struck up a really good relationship straight away. And we kind of, because we had two different skill sets, and we were coming at this from two different angles, we kind of agreed to kind of go in partnership, and if we win it, we win together. Funnily enough, we both lost, and we didn't actually get the project. But off the back of that, John ultimately became a customer of mine. And I was supporting John a lot with utility infrastructure. Effectively, John, was a specialist in the stuff that goes through that infrastructure, the stuff that you can't see. Energy. Really highly skilled procurement specialist. And then, unfortunately at the time, but ultimately long-term, fortunately, lockdown hit. I was working at home. John had his own business at the time in a COVID-secure location. We were doing a bit of work together, and John just basically said, "Come and work in my office if you don't want to work at home." So from there, really, we struck up a relationship, and obviously COVID hit. As a result of COVID, a procurement specialist basically usually gets paid through consumption through a meter, and it's all commercial. Now, there's a period of time where commercial premises were not open, therefore they're not consuming energy. Therefore, John ultimately was having a challenge around, the value that he was obtaining from his energy portfolio ultimately. So we started kind of talking about how he could diverse his portfolio. A lot of it at the time was around metering. There was massive challenges within the industry at the time in terms of speed and quality of how you could get meters on the wall for new developments and that kind of stuff. And John's an excellent salesperson, and I kind of, pushed him in the right direction in terms of the type of conversations he needed to be having and who to be having them with.
Because you're very experienced with sales yourself, though, aren't you? Because it sounds like some of the roles you had before.
Originally, yeah. Up until 2.5 years ago, I'd have told you I was a salesperson.
Yeah.
But John's a lot better salesperson than I.
Yeah.
And because I had this sort of technical background, ultimately over the last 2 years, I've been very operational. It's a consultancy model. We sell through consultative sales, highly technical sales. So John has helped me improve my sales skills, but also I've kind of met him in the middle with the technical operational stuff.
Can you just help me understand that? So consultative sales, is that the process is you figure out what someone's problem is, and then as you offer a potential solution during the meeting, and then you say, hey, you could do this yourself, or we'll just do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it's a lot of it's around new developments. Quite a lot of technical stuff there. I could list lots of things within that technical bracket: size of pipe, capacity in the network, all this type of stuff. And quite often, people do it late, so they're always. One of the main reasons why a new development gets delayed is ultimately because utilities. Whether it be the client side or actually the industry side, there's a lot to go through and a lot to understand in terms of providing that solution. So
sorry to interrupt. So why would the client delay it? Is it just because they're being disorganized?
Disorganized, not really thought about it, not really understanding the regulation and the detail that some of these statutory networks, independent connection providers have to go through. Whether that's network analysis, significant design work, and that's sometimes why it gets a bad rep, really. Ultimately, because there's a lack of understanding from even people that do it on a regular basis. Really, that's not to say the industry is where it should be. We're trying to make the industry better, but the reality is, if it was better, we probably wouldn't exist. But it's all about coming up with a strategic solution for the customer. It's always thinking about what the end goal is and how we get there in the most cost efficient way, the safest way.
So who are your main customers at the moment? Like, not specifically, but what do they have in common?
The beauty of what we do is there's so many routes to market for us. If I was to kind of list the sectors or the customer type that our customer, ultimately we have within our customer base, it's developers, that's commercial and house builders, and that could be right to your tier one stuff. Your really well-known commercial construction companies, your big house builders. We have a bit of a niche at the bottom end of the market with sort of property investors, smaller developers that aren't necessarily building, huge scale developments. That said, the challenges are still very much the same in terms of getting connected. We work a lot with procurement specialists to help their customers. So people ultimately that sell energy to their customers, we support them. If someone's moving in and out of a property, if they're adding additional equipment, then we'll tend to support those energy brokers, if you like, on their clients' requirements. Lots of end user stuff, franchises who are opening new stores all the time. Generally, there's always a utility requirement, whether that's upgrading something, putting something in new, moving something to accommodate some kind of internal refurb.
So, if I could oversimplify my understanding of what you do, then, so someone builds a house, but it needs electricity and water. So, do you arrange the installation of the electricity and water from the mains, essentially, to that
effectively
building?
I think arrange is probably a key word there. Project manage those works ultimately. You're not going to get a Dunore van at this moment in time turn up on your site, Dunore branded. We're not going to go and dig a hole in the road. Crudely putting it, I think we basically sell time and knowledge. So even at the point of where these projects are getting planning, pre-planning, we're being engaged to, do some feasibility studies. Ultimately, what are the risks to them, both time and cost, in terms of utility connections? Sometimes, you've got to move an existing utility asset to accommodate that build. Even stuff like, you've got to drop a curb to accommodate a new entrance to a site, a bell mouth. If there's utilities running within that footpath, that existing footpath, then you drop in the level of the ground. Utilities have to be at a certain depth, so immediately you've got to drop those utilities with it, and that can be quite complex. So ultimately, what we do is we understand what the customer wants. Sometimes what he wants is not actually what he needs, and we establish that quite quickly. We come up with a strategic plan of how to deliver those connections, or move connections, remove connections. Sometimes we've got to get them out quick so they can drop a building and demolish it. We come up with a strategy. We then go off and engage all those utility providers, and there's some options that you can take depending on size of project to benefit the customer, again, in time and cost. We'll do that piece of work, and then the customer then ultimately has a choice for us. They work off our recommendation and then work at a site level with the companies that we may have recommended. Or alternatively, they can retain our involvement, and we'll ultimately project manage it right to completion. And that completion is not just getting the meter on the wall and making sure that they've got power, but then making sure it bills properly. Making sure that they're actually paying for the right thing. I will be very clear, we're not a procurement specialist. Energy isn't really our thing. It used to be John's thing. We have lots of clients that are better than, they're specialities ultimately, energy procurements. But to get meters on the wall, we have to facilitate that quite often through the energy suppliers. You know the big six or the big five now, and again, you'll have seen in the papers for the last 12 months around energy pricing, and obviously the impact from Brexit, COVID, Russia, and that has made it challenging for them, but also, I don't think the level of service is quite there from them.
As in the big six?
It's big. I think it's the big five now, but yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think they've had challenges. We get that, but we expect a better level of service.
Haven't they made like record profits?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Look, I'm probably the wrong person to comment on this. I think there's a lot more to it than that. But yeah, the message is out. Our wholesale price has gone up. Price cap went up. People are paying through the roof for their energy. I would imagine that's pretty hard to stomach.
Yeah.
When the big guns are posting those profits. But I think there is a bit more to it than simply saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not sat here defending them, because ultimately I've experienced that at home with my home bill. I drive an electric car, which is, ultimately I charge at home. And perhaps 12 months, 18 months ago, if I had that electric car, perhaps the bills wouldn't be quite as high.
Absolutely. Okay, so it sounds really good. So John was, if I got that right, John was already kind of running his business beforehand.
Yeah, and Dunore actually existed. So
okay, all right.
Dunore actually existed. So we set this business up, and John kind of came to me and said, "Do you want to change the name?" Now, John's got a really good reputation in the industry, and there was an established brand there.
Yeah,
I was certainly not vain enough to change the name of the business to Tim and John Utilities just because I wanted my name in it. There was rhyme and reason, and it was a sensible decision to keep it as Dunore. And we've actually gone through a change in that. We've gone through a bit of a rebrand in that last couple of months. Not for any issues or anything like that. We have Dunore Utility Connections. One, it's a bit of a mouthful, and two, we've got a reputation in certainly in the local area for how we deliver and how we treat people, how we treat customers, and we're a bit synonymous with utilities, really. So we just dropped the utility connections, so we're ultimately Dunore, and that is also linked to a wider group strategy that we're currently progressing.
Well, and when you joined the business, was it just you and John, or did you, was there some staff there?
Just John and I, in a 2-man office in Wollaston, where we still are now. A couple of guys joined probably within 4 to 6 months. They really progressed well. I think in 2 years, it was our second birthday on the 13th of July.
And was John essentially wearing all the hats in the business? So he was doing the consulting element as well as the sales?
Prior to us actually formally going into business together, proper shareholder agreement, all that type of stuff. Yeah, John was basically a one-man band with support from his family as well.
Because I talk to a lot of business owners these days, and some of the most successful clients we got, they are partnerships. And then I talk to a lot of business owners where they're thinking, I want to take it to the next level. Do I need a partner? I think you're describing actually the opportunity to have one person focus on part of the business and make it as good as possible, and the other person to focus on another part and make it as good as possible. It's I'd imagine you'd be a great advocate of partnerships, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I was warned off it years ago. I wouldn't be here without him, and he wouldn't be where he is without me.
Why were you warned off partnerships? Was it just someone who had had a bad experience?
Yeah, I think so. And the risk of falling out ultimately. Don't get me wrong, we have disagreements. We disagree all the time. But challenge in the right way is, that's what we want, isn't it? It's that brings the right decisions for me, and we encourage that with our people now. If we all sit round a table and nod our heads and agree with each other, then we might as well switch the lights off and go home now, because that's just not the way.
No one's going to grow.
Well, absolutely. And we encourage that through our teams. John and I don't know everything. We'd be arrogant to say that we do. So, it's like everything that we do, really. Our vision, our mission, our values, everything that we do, everyone is engaged in, right, top to bottom.
Do you have members of your team where you do learn from them, like members of your team where they're better than you and John at things?
So where we learn from our team?
Yeah.
Oh, every day. Whether that's, it's not even explicit to professional stuff, is it? It's outside where it's personal stuff as well. I think, every single day. I'm learning. I've learned more in the last 2 years than I probably did in the 10 years prior. What do you think is the most valuable lesson you've learned in the last 2 years? That's a difficult question. Valuable lesson. I think for me, before we decide what we're going to do and where we're going to, it's who. We use the turnarounds on the bus all the time. Pretty cheesy, but it's so true. We want to get to a certain destination. We have got a vision to get there. But if we haven't got the right people on the bus, then we're not going to get there.
I used to have an action coach, and he used to use that all the time. Like, if you got the right people in the right seats.
Yeah. Well, this is it, mate. And I think we've actually changed our recruitment strategy to accommodate that. Don't get me wrong. We need certain skills across the business in certain areas. We've got some skill gaps. We're only 2 years old. But what trumps that for me is attitude and behaviour. So positivity, grit, determination. We like people that have overcome challenges, and are positive through those challenges. And our recruitment strategy ultimately reflects that. I think if we get the right person and we want them on the bus, we'll just create a job.
So you don't recruit for roles anymore. You recruit.
We do both.
Okay, fine.
Don't get me wrong. Look, there's defined skills that any business needs, particularly our business across all areas. It's quite technical what we do, so there has to be in certain roles certain level of technical acumen. But that said, outside that, and what trumps that is the personality, the attitude, grit, determination, resourcefulness, initiative.
How do you test for grit and determination before you hire someone?
Okay, just through questions, really, open questions, cultural fit stuff, aspirational fit stuff. I've been doing some recruitment over the last week, and I think people were pretty shocked. It's a two-phase process. I'd read the CVs. Obviously, there was a reason why they were on the other side of that table. But I think they were pretty struck by the fact that for most of the interview process, certainly the first stage, I wasn't really asking them anything about capability or skill. I can read a CV, So to get to that second phase where we will drill down into experience, we will drill down into capability and skill sets, etc. But the most important thing for me is who you are, where you come from, what you've been through, your attitudes, your future aspirations. We like diversity, people from different backgrounds, look at things in different ways. And we'll always encourage that. We're a team. We help each other. We support each other. We call each other out, damn right, but in the right way. So for me, look, certain roles, accountancy for one, I'm not going to get someone that's worked on the tools within the utilities industry to come and do my books, am I? But that there has to be that cultural fit. There has to be a shared vision, and that's what we're trying to do, really. If everyone is on board with that vision, that mission, those values, then, to be honest, we'll only have to lead people. We won't have to manage them. They'll manage themselves. They'll self-police themselves, because we're ultimately all on the same page.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I mean, you're kind of describing what we go through as well. So, yeah, we do a 2-stage interview. Usually it's like a telephone interview, and then we do a more formal one. But the telephone interview, we do focus a lot on like helping people understand what's involved in the role. But then yeah, it's about asking we ask a lot of questions about our culture. So we used to have our 12 points of we used to have 9 points of culture, and then we went up to 12, and now we've gone down to 7.
Okay.
But I'd argue, actually, you know what? Our culture hasn't really changed. It's just like when you got 12 points of culture, no one really remembers them all, but they're still demonstrating those things day in, day out. So all we did was condensed it a bit.
Okay. Awesome.
It's so important having culture. Like I talk to a lot of business owners, and they're like, yeah, we have a culture. And I'm like, great, where is it? And they're like, oh, it's not written down. And I'm like, okay, all right, hang on a minute. So if you have to recite your culture off the top of your head, will you end up with the same culture written down as a member of your team reciting it? And then I think that it kind of clicks for them at that point. But, you know, if it's not written down, it's like having a game where there's no rules written down.
Yeah, there's more to it that, though, because there's the opposite end of the scale, isn't there? I've worked in large corporates, and it's just words on a wall. And the reality is you can't feel it. It's not tangible. They don't link it to everything they do. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, you walk into our office, you can see certain things that links to our culture and values. But yeah, it's how you bring that to life, isn't it, really? So you're spot on, but words on a page or a piece of paper or giving everyone a T-shirt with it on, you know, that's not enough for us, really. And look, there's a reason why I'm sat other side of this table. You know, we've obviously got a relationship right from day one. John and I realised that we needed outside help, specialists, if you like, experts, and we've looked to do that locally, and there has to be that cultural fit. And I think, you know, our relationship, although it's relatively recent, we had a great accountant before, but really was set up for really small businesses. You know, the relationship that we've had over the last few months has been a bit of a game changer for us, really, in terms of, you know, having visibility of cash flow, you know, those key KPIs. It's just it's taken it to a bigger level, really. And it's enabled us not to micromanage stuff, not have to check stuff all the time. You know, the visibility's there, and we can just strategically lead, really. We are doing a bit of the doing still. You know, we're 2 years in. Some of that's for good reason. Some of that's because I'm probably a bit of a control freak and need to stop it and step back, and I've kind of programmed myself to do certain stuff. But yeah, I think, look, you know, from a culture perspective, you can feel it in our place, and everyone says it that comes externally. The people are empowered, and they know what that culture is, and they certainly know where we're going, and ultimately they're on the bus.
Yeah, that's really important, because actually, like, having a team but then utilizing the team are two very different things. I come across so many business owners that are struggling to let go, and I don't know if it's a trust issue. Well, it's usually a trust issue, but there was a really good book. It's called Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz.
Okay.
And he talks about something called the queen bee role. So there's just one role in your business that no one else can do. And to be fair, generally there is someone else that can do that role.
Yeah.
But he talks about the queen bee role, but he also talks about delegating in that book. And it's really good, because one of the key things he explains in the book is a team member might not do things the way you want them to be done, or they might not do them exactly how you do them, but it doesn't make them wrong.
Correct.
And where most business owners are struggling is when that team member doesn't do something the way you want it to be done, they intervene. Whereas this book's really good because it talks about the importance of not intervening in that, letting that team member follow their own procedure or the business procedure, do it in their way, build up the confidence. The confidence is one of the most important things in delegating. And then like in the book, he then talks about having like a debrief later on and saying, okay, how could we have improved this process? So it was quite good. I was walking like the West Highland Way a couple of years ago, and I was listening to it while I was walking. But it's something I've always tried to stick with, like, you know, the idea of mission command, like, you know, tell people why they're doing something, what the end result needs to be, rather than exactly how to do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm not going to stand there and say I find that easy. I don't. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm a bit of a control freak. I'm getting better.
Do you find, so it gets easier, doesn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm getting better. Look, doing similar things to you, reading for me, particularly the last few months, has been really good for me, and I'm taking mental note of that, and I'll probably go and purchase myself a copy. I like information. I like data. Kind of treat your brain as a muscle, if you like. But yeah, I think that's a challenge. I think John and I, what we're trying to do, and you know, I'm actually quoting out of another book here, but we're trying to be level 5 leaders.
Is that good to great?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Jim Collins, my mentor, actually put me onto it. And you've obviously been copied into a few emails.
I read the article about the Flywheel. That was really good, actually.
Yeah,
and
that is all about creating a vision. You know, creating momentum to that. You know, if you've got the right core values and everyone's, you know, engaged in that, even part of producing them as well. And we're doing a piece of work around that. And it ultimately starts with their personal mission statements. If they're willing to do it, you know, it's certainly not compulsory. But yeah, you know, this kind of level 5 leader stuff, it all leads down to one thing, really, that it's more than money. It has to be more than money. I'm certainly not calling John and I geniuses, but there's a concept around, you know, you can have a level 4 leader, and you know, basically it's a genius that leads the business, and then you know, that person leaves, passes away, passes to a family member, all that type of stuff, and everything just falls apart.
So what are the levels of leader?
So there's one to 5.
Okay.
5 being the highest, and it goes up with competence and ability to lead. Yeah. But to be a level 5 leader, the difference is that it's not about them. It's humility. You know, they work for their people, not the other way around. And they also put stuff in place for the day that they do depart, that one, the right succession plan in the replacement matches that level. And also, like I said, you know, the business carries on. You know, there's lots of businesses that, you know, a CEO or MD has managed the whole life, retires, unfortunately passes away, and you know, from there the business is never the same. And you know, the concept of the book is, you know, is good to great. We've done really, really well to get where we are this quickly. If I thought we would be here 2 years ago, I said, you're talking rubbish. We had a plan, we had a vision from the start. It's adapted, but this book is around. We're pretty good at what we do. Do I think we're great? No, not yet. Are we going to be great? Yeah, we're going to be great. But after that, we've got to stay great, and that's ultimately the key. And you know, the books that you're mentioning, the books that I've mentioned, it's really helping us. And you know, this is almost like the scientists of leadership and stuff. I was fortunate. I've got a mentor at the moment that I worked for a long time ago. I was fortunate to go through a strategic leadership course probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
And quite often, this particular person, she's awesome.
Are you allowed to say who it is?
Jill Bryant from Kudos Leadership. Okay. It's strategic leadership coaching. It's not theory. It's how you practically implement it ultimately. And I think sort of 9 months into setting this business up, I kind of had a conversation with John. I said, look, mate, I went through this process 10 years ago, mate, and it was fundamental to some of my ways of thinking and where ultimately where I'd got to in the employment world. And I kind of said, look,
Hi, it's Nishi here, and before we continue with the rest of the podcast, I just wanted to take a few seconds to explain what we do. We're a firm of accountants and business advisors, and we are really passionate about helping people grow and scale their own businesses and achieve the lifestyle they deserve. To do this, we've created a series of resources on our website, unrelentingdrive.com. So once you've got a few minutes after this episode, it's definitely worth checking that out. And just a quick reminder, if you do enjoy this episode, just remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe.
I think normally, and I think she even said it at the time, it's a bit early for this, isn't it? Quite often she's tasked with turning businesses around or helping CEOs and MDs in turning businesses around. And we ultimately start with creating that vision. But I think after discussion, I think we both agree if we do this now and we do this right now, then it sets the right foundation. So over the last 6 months, 4 of us within the business have gone through 5 modules of strategic coaching. There's a 6th to come, which is in August. We are incredibly lucky to have this opportunity. Obviously, it costs money, but it's an investment. I'd make 10 times over. And the reality is, a business of our size at that kind of time scale, if we'd approached this particular person and said without no relationship, we wouldn't have got her through the door. So I'm pretty grateful for that, because based on our relationship, and look, it's brought things back to me. Things have actually clicked better just because I'm more mature.
Yeah.
There's a tangible difference in, not that there was a problem before, because we wouldn't have got to where we were, but there's a tangible difference in the way John thinks and performance with John. We've just gone to a different level.
So I guess, because I haven't done that course, but what would you say the main takeaway point has been, or is it like loads of little things?
Loads of big things, really. Anything from, so the first module we did was about creating a vision.
Okay.
The last module that we've recently done is about managing change, and people that could be resistant to change.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to give away all our secrets here.
No, I guess you can't. It's not.
But it's been fundamental to in terms of a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to talk about now. Really, vision, mission, values. Begin with the end in mind. Get everyone on the bus. The right people on the bus, and it's been absolutely priceless for us. And if John was sat here, he'd be saying it's exactly the same thing. We're put on our toes.
Do you think you're hiring different kinds of people because of all this?
Yeah, some of our strategies have changed.
Yeah.
But there is also confirmation within it that we were doing some of the right things before.
Okay.
Perhaps it wasn't structured as well as it needs to be. I would say John and I aren't the most organised of people. We're a bit...
I think entrepreneurs rarely are.
We're a bit fly off, both of us sort of fly off the seat of our pants quite a lot. We're both getting better. It's
one
been
thing.
Awesome.
One thing I've noticed with successful entrepreneurs is they take a lot more action than your average person, but it kind of means the organizational element can't always keep up. So I think so. I noticed that a lot. There's a lot of people who'll just build it and then fix it later, and that's always been the mentality with some of the most successful people I've met.
Okay. Sometimes you have to do that, but also we like to predict and plan. We don't do anything half-assed. We've made a couple of mistakes in terms of probably doing stuff and pushing stuff through without a plan. We manage risk really, really well, and that is absolutely key. But the reality is, I think sometimes one, you got to take risks, and two, you're right. Sometimes you got to suck it and see. I'm a bit of a pessimist. John's probably more of an optimist, which works really well. So he's like, come on, brings me up. I have to bring him back down to the ground sometimes, and it works really well. But yeah, sometimes sometimes you just got to do it, haven't you? That said, infrastructure of our business is pretty key for us. We're still pretty much working off a manual process. We're currently building a system, and a big part of going good to great is leveraging technology to support that. But yeah, look, sometimes you just got to go and do it, and that was ultimately what we did in the first place to start it. I was nervous about it. I was in a relatively well-paid position, but to be fair, a lot of business owners go through a lot of pain, don't they, in terms of reduced income to get it off the ground. Luckily, and one of the reasons for that is because it is a partnership. I think pretty much within 1 month to the next month, I was pretty much kind of in the same position that I was when I was employed in terms of security.
Sorry, it only took you a couple of months to get back to that point.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's down to really John and the sales work that he did. Back then it was like we sat opposite each other. He'd sell it, I'd have to deliver it, and that's as simple as it was. Yeah,
fair play. And then now he's building a sales team, and you're building the delivery team.
Yeah, ultimately. So we're quite operationally biased at this moment in time. We've been lucky. I sell through service. Same with John. But John's only been the active salesperson in our business. But we've just kind of, it takes time. We've always communicated to everybody that we have a plan. It's in stages. We've never denied the fact that at some point we want to step back. Ultimately, we're trying to buy time now. We're now going through recruitment processes to build John's team up.
How big is your sales team at the moment?
At the moment, it's just John.
Okay. So and you got about 12 people, including you and John.
So we got 12 people. Obviously, there is some additions to that. We have a awesome. I call them people company because we call HR people. But awesome HR company that support us. They have done from day one. Policies right, performance management objectives. Well-being is huge, absolutely massive for us. And Billy Joe effectively operates as almost our non-executive director on a part-time basis. So there is an extension to those 12 people. But in terms of FTE, I think by 1st of September that'll be 14. And I think beyond that, 1st of October, November, that's probably going to be 15 and 16. And that's with some more operational people. Like I said, my background, I'm not bad at it, but I'm blagging some of it, if I'm honest. I'm not operational. I've just learned to be technical. So then we've got some skill gaps there still. John's now kind of, we want to elevate him up to, the more strategic partnership level, leading high performing sales teams. And we'll do that through, highly skilled sales people. So the concept I really, really like is the hunter farmer, concept. So some salespeople, you can get both. But if you're going to be really, really good at sales, we like the hunter, which ultimately is new business. And then someone's a farmer that cultivates those relationships across the business, ultimately in account management. And they're a couple of the skill sets that we're looking to bring into the business.
So but I thought that one was better than the other. So isn't farming better than hunting?
You need both.
Yeah,
I think you need both. I think if you've got an existing portfolio of customers and you've got a load of opportunity, then you probably don't need a hunter. You need a farmer. But if you need to go and get doors open to, big ticket relationships and start that process off, you can't not have a hunter. And, if John asked me what his best skill set was, it's a hunter all day long. He can create relationships. He networks really, really well. He's a bit of a social media god, loves it. I can't stand it. Again, why it's great that great our relationship works. But yeah, I think you need a mix. I think you need both.
Because I think when I spoke to John last time, he was saying he does a lot of networking, but he's networks in really industry specific groups.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate that John created a relationship with a company called White Box. Again, we're very grateful to these guys. They run networking events that is specifically to development and teaching people how to be great property developers. Unfortunately, we've managed to be involved in some of those networking events. We sponsor them from Kent to Manchester and everywhere in between. And yeah, they are specific to our needs really, and the consultative service that we offer. There's a need in that within those businesses to manage utilities safely and manage risk for them. And yeah, we do, and there's stuff outside that, but it tends to be specific to construction, property development, that type of stuff. We do other stuff. We're involved in Chamber of Commerce stuff, which is awesome. We won the New Business of the Year award for Northants Chamber. We're sponsoring award this year for them. It's great to be part of that. I know you do BNI and stuff like that. I think whilst we love to be involved in those stuff, it really comes more of a community thing, a payback thing. I think where our opportunity lies, is in some of those other networking events that is ultimately specific to, bricks and mortar, really.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. If you've got a few minutes, would you mind just talking about what the Flywheel is? Because I read it and I thought it was really, really interesting.
Okay, so I don't think it will take me a few minutes. Again, I'm quoting other people here. It's not my information. Sometimes we take information and try and make it better. And I've probably made a living on that, if I'm honest. I'm not the most creative of people. But yeah, the Flywheel concept is basically, imagine a big wheel. Okay. And 2 years ago, we created a vision and a plan, and we've adapted that. And ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to push this big wheel to turn it. Okay. And at the start, when you're setting up a business and you've created that vision, it's quite hard, isn't it? You're trying to really push that wheel. And if we all have within the business, if we all have the same end game, the same objectives, the same core values, then what happens is everyone is pushing that wheel. And over time, what happens is that wheel starts to spin quicker and the momentum starts to get quicker. And then it's easier to turn. And then ultimately, it just keeps turning and turning and turning because everyone's ultimately aligned in what you're trying to achieve. So it's more effort at the start, and then you just get it spinning ultimately, and just get that momentum, get everyone on the same page. And like I said, I made a comment earlier around that's when you really got that momentum. You don't necessarily need to manage people, you just lead them. They'll manage themselves. Because
there was also something else that was interesting in that article, and it was essentially when asked which push on the wheel made the business or got the business to where it is, most CEOs or managing directors could not identify one specific thing that got their business to where it is today.
Yep, correct.
It's just loads of little things.
Multiple things. But it all starts from having that common goal and everyone being engaged in that goal.
I think
all pushing towards that goal.
That's one thing I've learned over the years as well. The way I look at it is like when you're earlier on in the business, and I think out of naivety, I thought like there could just be this one action I could take, this one big thing I could do that would just change everything overnight. And I think, almost 10 years in now. So I started this business when I was 29, and then I'm going to be 39 this year.
Okay.
And almost 10 years in now, I've realized actually all you can do is just show up every day.
Yeah.
Even sometimes, like when I show up, that I just get in people's way. And then I think, like Ellie was telling me earlier, how efficient they are when I'm not around.
Perhaps you should listen, mate.
Maybe.
Again, it's a poor skill of mine. I like to talk. I'm not the best of listeners, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a business is a sum of all its parts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't look for the latest technology fad that you think's going to change your business. Don't go and make an investment. A big investment purely on the basis that you're just looking at the money stuff, basically the economics of it. And there's some more concepts within the same book, actually. I think, look, we've created a group. There's two other areas of our business that, it's in the infancy, really. But we kind of asked three questions before we were prepared to make these investments, really. Or just taking a different route around what's got us to where we are. That has to, where we are and what we do as a core business has to be we have to keep our eye on it, and it has to be the priority. But these three questions that we ask ourselves is, yeah, absolutely. Does it make economical sense? Is there an economical driver behind it? Yeah, damn right there is. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't want to earn loads of money. It'd be a lie. But the other two questions really are around, are we passionate about it? Really, really, really passionate about it. Is it more than money? And that we have to tick that box. Okay. And then the other question is, can we be the best at it? You're not going to be a great company if, one, it don't make money. Two, you don't do it for any other reason than money. And three, whether you can be the best at it. And all those three questions have been asked by some of the biggest companies in certainly in the US and wider. We will continue to ask those questions every time we look to diverse from what our core business is. Or if you look at acquisitions, for example, we're not really in that place. We hope to be, but people make acquisitions because they think it's going to be the one single thing, as you said, that's going to change their business. It doesn't tick those three boxes, and generally it fails. And also, you can't also link it all back to all that other stuff. Everyone, sharing that goal, because it's only been done for money ultimately.
I've got an acronym I use. It's called BRAINO, and I use that when I'm making decisions. And it's kind of helped me a lot over these years. So sometimes I forget it, but typically, BRAINO: benefits, risks, alternatives, and then intuition or instincts, and then the N is for what happens if you don't do anything. Because I guess when you're making a decision, not doing anything is still making a decision. And then the final one, it's a lot of companies have brain, but I added the O at the end because I've put objectives, like, what is your overall objective? Yeah. And I think the last one is a really important one, because whenever you make a decision, exactly as you're saying, is it aligned to everything else that you are trying to achieve in a business? And I learned something interesting a long, long time ago, the difference between efficiency and effectiveness. So efficiency is about doing something as well as it can be done, but effectiveness is about doing the right thing in the first place.
Yeah, I'd agree, mate. I might even steal that off you, if I'm honest. But no, I like. Give me an example when you've used it recently.
Okay, an example of when I decided whether to have this podcast or not, because ultimately, I guess the benefits with a podcast, the benefits aren't always completely obvious. it is a very long-term investment, and and it may never recover the money it's cost to produce it. Although we've seen indicators now, but ultimately, like where it's really helped me, like alternatives to podcasts, we've got other ways to make content. Like you became a client of ours way before we had the podcast. We had other ways to create videos and content that you would have seen back then. But the ultimate objective was, in terms of our business, we want to create high quality conversations, and this is one of the things that's really driven me to do the podcast, because I think it's really aligned with what we want to achieve as a business, and that is to just up level the quality of discussion in the business community. I guess I think saving tax is really important for business owners, because it's a cost. Yep. And you want to reduce the cost so you can actually invest more in the growth of your business. But I always felt a little bit frustrated where like the entire conversation was just about tax saving and with clients. And we never really had that mandate to really talk about other things, like more important things, in my opinion, like, profitability, the value of the business. And that's why, like this podcast, in my opinion, we're capturing stories about people not just making a profit, but actually enhancing the value of their business. And that's where I've really used it. And that's where the alignment bit was really important, because that was the thing that pushed me over the edge to say, yes, let's do it. Because I really saw that, how it met our long-term goals. And our vision is about giving people the resources they need to build really good quality businesses. But part of that is just changing the conversation. Small business owners, in my opinion, the vast majority of them, they talk about the wrong things, they focus on the wrong things.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think the conversations we've had since our relationship, in fact, I don't think we've ever actually ended a meeting on time, for one, which tells you a lot of stuff. For me, quality of conversations that we have are awesome. I also watch these podcasts. I think there's a couple I've got to catch up on. And I actually kind of approached you off the back of your, albeit pre-podcast, I approached you off the back of watching content, and also realizing at the time we had a serious skill gap. And also a technology gap, which ultimately you guys have filled, and some which we're delighted with and we're very thankful for. But yeah, keep doing them. I think they're awesome, and I think what's very clear is you're a lot more than an accountancy. When you talk accountants, usually most people start falling asleep, don't they? So it's a lot more than that, and kudos to you, man. And I wish you all the best.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Tim. So I've just got a couple more questions, before we wrap this up. But when you started the business, I know you kind of mentioned, like, a year ago, if you thought you'd be where like you are now, it might not seem that achievable. But did you have any doubts it would work? But you also mentioned, like, quite early on, you matched the salary you had in employment, so those doubts couldn't have lasted long, could they?
Yeah, but there was always a nervousness, because you plan for the future, but you don't really know what's going to happen. We've been through some tough times as a country and a world, haven't we? That what's not to say that an event, how many businesses closed down because of COVID and stuff. There's a more of a nervousness. I'm not going to lie. There's been months gone by where are certain things going to get paid? Our invoice is going to get paid, all that type of stuff. Reality is employment, assuming you're performing and the company's managed correctly. The reality is that paycheck's always going to be there at the end of the month, and that's some of the security around employment, really. Has there been doubts? Not really, in terms of what we're trying to achieve. I'm confident. We were pretty confident. We had a plan. Like I said, it has been rejigged and defined and structured a lot better without outside help. A big part of that plan comes from these outside helpers, if you like, these partners. But no, I think we work really hard. I've realised, both John and I have realised in the last couple of months, we probably hadn't had a life for 2 years. I spent more time. I certainly spent more time in the first 18 months with John than anybody else. There has had to be some skill, some finesse to achieve what we've achieved so far. But we haven't achieved everything that we want to, and we're nowhere near where we want to be. By the time we do step back, if you want to call it that. But the main thing that's got us here is ethic, just wanting it,
work ethic.
Yeah, just wanting it that bad. I believe 80% of anything is just ethic. I could tell you about the first year. You're talking, 5, 6 in the morning till 5, 6 at night, Monday to Friday, back in Saturday mornings, 6 till midday, back again Monday, week in, week out, to do that. Now we're in a lucky position because we've got some really, really good people. And we also can't just do it. We promote well-being so much. We've got a clear well-being plan in our business, and we do lots and lots of things to make sure that everyone's okay ultimately. But sometimes we forget about ourselves, and I think that's really resonated the last few months. I mean, I went on holiday for 2 weeks. It's the first time in 2.5 years that I switched my emails off.
Oh, amazing! Yeah,
and I think some of that is me, and just the way I'm built, if you like. But most of that's down to the people, because people they don't need to ring me anymore around when am I sticking that meter on the wall. Yeah, we got good people that deal with it. And you're right, the point you made around, I'm going to take that on board a little bit more, really. The point you made around objective and outcome with people, and people not doing it exactly the way I want it done. I'm a bit of a stickler for that, if I'm honest. But you're right, but in a weird way, most of what we talk about is output. It's all about behaviours and output. There's another concept around production versus production contribution. So you have the production is the outcome, but it can't always just be about production. To get the production, you have to have the production contribution. And I think there's again, this comes from a book that I've been reading recently. It's around the man with the goose that lays the golden eggs. So, he wakes up one day, he's got a goose, and he finds a golden egg, and he's like, shit, man, what? Is this real? Goes and checks it out. Yeah, it's real. Wow. Next day, it lays another one. Wow, this is awesome, man. Next day, it lays another one. Next day, it lays another one. Next day, it lays another one. To the point where he's now not happy with one golden egg a day. So he cuts the thing in half because he thinks he's going to get all of them out at the same time. And there's nothing in there. So it's not all about the monetary outcome, if you like, of the production, if you like. It's about how you contribute, the behaviours, all that type of stuff to get to that production. So, that's really insightful. Thank you. Okay.
And in terms of I think one of the hardest things for me when I've been building up my own business is just dealing with things like financial uncertainty, and just uncertainty in general. How do you deal with that, or are you good at dealing with that?
Yeah, I think we've been pretty good. We've always been very, very risk averse. I think we could have taken more risks with spending, and we might even have been further ahead than we are now. But we manage risk really, really well. We always manage cash flow really, really well, although we were missing visibility in certain things from you guys, which has come in spades. But it's difficult. There's always an uncertainty and a nervousness around it. But I think if you want to achieve what we want to achieve, we just have to go through that and deal with it and just manage risk and cash effectively, really. I think going back, I think it must have been 12 12 months ago, John and I had a conversation. We're like, shit, man, we got 6 people. We've got to make sure we pay their wages all the time, on time. It was quite daunting, and especially I've never been in this world. Even John in his own sort of previous business, he didn't have levels of staff like that. I think you just embrace it. You do all the right things. We certainly would pay them before we pay ourselves. It's just the nature of who we are. It's the right thing to do. And giving that level of security, and the way although we're in kind of we've got a clear business strategy, something that kind of superseded that right from the start. We kind of set up a 3-stage plan, indicative timescales on it, and the first part of that plan was basically called set up and secure. Set up, just set the business up, but then provide some security, not just John and I, but to anyone who's within the business. Rainy day money, if you want to call it that. It's talking about events that have happened that have taken people out of business. We kind of need the peace of mind, if you like, that if something does happen, we don't hit numbers for a month or 2 or 6-9 months. Then we're not letting people go. We battle through it as a team. We keep doing the right things that we believe in, and I'm a great believer of the numbers come production contribution to production. But we've always tried to create a leeway, a barrier. And this was never about John and I just paying for our lifestyle and living from month to month. If I was going to do that, I'd still be in employment. This is bigger picture stuff,
I mean, yeah, that's one of the commitments I've got to my team, but it goes both ways, because the other side of that is there's an expectation that they will adapt to whatever the business needs them to do.
Damn right. I think, and also it's that same as performance versus support, isn't it? We've got kind of an unconditional mechanism of support and well-being to our people. It's the right thing to do. I'm going to lie, it's strategic as well. I think you treat people right, you do the right things for people, you're going to get a lot more out of them. They're going to be a lot more loyal. But you're absolutely right, and I think you act in that right way. When the chips are down, you'll see that back in spades. Because they'll remember and appreciate what you may have done for them too. And that extends at, I don't want to get involved in people's personal lives. People's personal lives are their personal lives, but everyone, to a man and woman, certainly knows if there's an issue, they can come and talk to us, or our wellbeing specialist. They can come and talk to us, and we'll do everything we can to help them out. I'm not going to list the things that we've done in the last 2 years right now, for lots and lots of reasons. We've been told to blow our trumpet about lots of stuff that we do, whether that's community, charity, and stuff for people and all that type of stuff. I've always kind of been, we just do that. I don't really want to be using that for marketing purposes or generating opportunities and that type of stuff. And this is probably as much as I'll really talk about it, really. But yeah, we have a people strategy. It's fundamental to our business, but absolutely we expect stuff back, and we expect a certain level of behaviour. We expect a certain level of attitude, and ultimately we expect a certain level of performance as well. And if that's not there, when we'll put mechanisms in place to address it, because again, it might just be a support mechanism, performance management plans and all that type of stuff. That stuff's not a big stick thing. Okay, don't get me wrong, objectives and targets, it protects us to a certain point if you've got the wrong person on your bus. But yeah, it's about helping people to get to the level that we expect them to be.
That makes a lot of sense. And I guess we're coming to the end of the podcast, really, but what's next for Dunore Connections?
Okay. What does? Well, I think the group strategy. We're gonna push that big time. We have a vision, really big, ambitious goal to be the industry's partner and employer of choice. you actually think about what that means, that's a pretty big, ambitious goal. So that's where we're going.
How will you know when you've achieved that goal?
It's a difficult question. When we're in a position to do what we set out to do, i.e., step back, knowing that we're leaving a legacy and a business that doesn't fall apart as a result of our exit strategy, if you like. And there's lots of KPIs we have and all that type of stuff. So we're really kind of going to drive that strategic plan over the next 2-3 years.
Is there? Do you have the ability to do a bit of benchmarking there, like see how your business compares to some others in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only issue we have there is we deal with it in a niche way. A lot of people say, who are your competitors? There's one or two out there. But we're not. We're in the industry, but we're kind of not the industry, if that makes sense. So we're not I'm certainly not going to have anyone go and dig a hole and lay a cable, like I said, from the outset. But yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it will be based on two fundamental things. And that's feedback from our people. And we do some stuff on that in terms of already employee surveys. We have a red flag mechanism, which means they have the opportunity through various forms to be able to flag issues up. And we do exactly the same thing from a customer perspective. So the feedback on an MPS style mechanism is pretty important to us. But more than that, I think as MD of this particular company, we don't always get everything right 99% of the time, or 100% of the time. Sometimes things are out of our hands, but we never blame others. We never point fingers. It's kind of a look in the mirror type of attitude. We can't blame bad luck and all that type of stuff. So as an MD, what I'm, again, I want information. I love data. And some of that is going to be delivered through face-to-face meetings from our customers. Perhaps where, a customer where we may have let down. It doesn't happen very often, but it can do. I'm sure you're well aware of that. I want to hear the brutal facts, really. It's all good around benchmarking us in terms of this is the good stuff, this is the great stuff. Look at us, how big our numbers are. Look at this, how big this project is, all that type of stuff. For me, I work better with the bad stuff. What can we actually go and use to, drive this business, develop this business, and just make us better, good to great.
Amazing. Okay, yeah, and Tim, finally, if there was a bit of advice you'd give to someone starting a business, what would that be?
Have the right people around you. Get the right advice. You don't have to do it all yourself, whether that's internally or externally. If you want it bad enough, put the hours in. Put a plan together. You got a smart plan. And you work really hard and you execute that plan with the right behaviours, with the right strategic pieces, then you will be successful. Might not happen overnight. It might not be as quick as the time it's taken us to get to where we are. But we're only on the bottom rung of the ladder, really. For me, sky's the limit. Big picture thinking. Begin with the end in mind, all this good stuff, really. But yeah, work hard, enjoy it, and get the right people around you. Get help.
Amazing. Okay. And Tim, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Okay. So our website, it's Dunore, www.dunore.co.uk. You'll have the telephone numbers, all that type of stuff. Or I'm on LinkedIn if you want to contact me individually. Tim Carroll, again, Managing Director of Dunore. Happy to speak to like-minded businesses if you think I can give some advice that helps people, then I will certainly try. I'm certainly not an expert, and I'm certainly not the finished article. If it's from a customer perspective, go to the website, go via LinkedIn. Whether it's me or most likely some of my project managers who are awesome. We'll have an open and honest conversation. Advice and help costs nothing from us.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the
mate.
podcast. And everyone, you've been watching the Unrelenting Drive podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes, and I'll see you soon.